All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into something absolutely essential. It's one of the most powerful parts of Arabic grammar. We're talking about the imperative, the command form, or as you know it, the fa'al amr. So, you ever wonder how you actually tell someone to do something? Like sit, read, listen. Well, that's exactly where the verb of command comes into play. And let me tell you, getting this down is the key. It's what takes you from just kind of knowing Arabic to really confidently using it.
Okay, so we're going to build this thing from the ground up. We'll start right at the foundation with those basic three-letter root verbs, what the grammarians call thulathi mujarrad. This is where all the core logic really gets set in stone.
Now, I know, looking at a four-step process like this can seem a little intimidating at first glance, but trust me, it's actually a really beautiful system. It follows four super clear, super logical steps, and once you see the pattern, I promise, it's all going to click.
All right, first things first, we're actually going to tackle steps 1 and 2 together. It's easy. We'll start with a form you almost definitely already know, the second person present tense. Think of something like tafhalu, which means you do. All you have to do is just drop that ta at the beginning. Yep, that's it. Simple as that.
Okay, so this brings us to a really crucial rule in Arabic. See, after you drop that ta, you're often left with a word that starts with a letter that has no vowel on it, a sakin. And in Arabic, you can't start a word like that. It's unpronounceable. So how do they solve this? Well, the language has this brilliant little tool, a helper vowel, called the hamza al-wasl.
So, the big question is, right, what vowel does this little helper hamza get? Well, it's not random at all. The rule is actually super elegant. All you do is you look back at the original present tense verb and you check the vowel on the middle root letter. If that middle letter has a dhamma, that oo sound, then your hamza also gets a dhamma. If it's anything else, a fatha or a kasra, the hamza gets a kasra. That's the rule.
And for our final step, we have to put the verb into what's called the jussive state, or majzoom. You can think of this as like the verb's lightest, sharpest form, which is perfect for a command, right? For a singular guy, this just means you make the last letter silent, you put a sukun on it. For plurals or feminine forms, you're usually just going to drop that final noon.
And check this out. This is the whole process in action. Take tadkhulu. The middle letter has that dhamma, right? So the hamza gets a dhamma, and boom, you get udkhulu. Now look at tadribu. The middle letter has a kasra, so the hamza gets a kasra, which gives you idrib. See what I mean? It's a system. It just works.
All right, let's switch gears and move on to the derived verb forms, the thulathi mazid fi. Because what we're about to see is how this whole process can actually get, believe it or not, a whole lot easier. This leads to a really interesting question, and honestly, this is the key that unlocks why derived verbs can be so much simpler. What happens if after we drop that te, the word is already pronounceable? What if we don't need a helper vowel?
Well, for a whole bunch of the most common derived verb patterns, that's exactly what happens. You take off the ta at the beginning, and the first letter of what's left, well, it already has a vowel. It's already pronounceable. So that whole step about adding a hamza wasl, yeah, you just skip it entirely. It's a shortcut.
Okay, so let's actually put these two methods side by side. This is where you're going to really see the main difference, and you'll appreciate just how much of a shortcut these derived forms can be.
Yeah, this table lays it out perfectly. Look, the start and the end, the first step and the last step, they're the same for both. But the real difference, the crucial part, is right there in the middle. For your basic verbs, you almost always need that helping hamza. But for the derived verbs, a lot of the time, you don't need it at all. And that just simplifies the whole thing.
All right, to make this even clearer, let's break it down. We can actually sort all of those derived verb families, the abwab, into 3 really simple groups, just based on how they form their command.
So first up is group 1. For these 4 super common patterns, you literally just do 2 things. Remove the ta from the present tense, and then make it justive. That's it. 2 steps. No hamza, no fuss. It couldn't be easier.
Next, we've got group 2, which is, well, it's really just one special case, the family Bab If'al. This one's a bit of an exception. It does need a hamza, but here's the thing, that hamza is actually part of the verb pattern itself. And it always, and I mean always, takes a fatha, that A sound. It's totally fixed, no guesswork. And finally, there's group 3. Now, these 3 families behave a lot like the basic verbs we started with. They need that helper hamza, but the rule is even simpler here. That hamza is always going to take a kasra, an I sound, every single time. You don't even have to check the middle root letter. It's a constant.
Okay, so we've totally nailed the command for you, the armor hadr. So now let's look at two just brilliantly simple universal rules. And when I say universal, I mean they apply to all the verb types we've talked about, basic or derived.
So, what if you want to give a command to someone who's not there? Or even to yourself, like, I should do this. The rule is, well, it's incredibly easy. You just take the jussive form of the verb and stick the prefix li right on the front, so you get something like liyaf'al. Let him do it. It's that straightforward.
And what about the negative command? Telling someone not to do something. The rule for this is maybe even simpler, and it's super powerful. You just add la before the jussive form. And the best part, this works for absolutely everyone. First person, second person, third person, it doesn't matter. La taf'al. Don't do it.
Here's a perfect example of how clean this rule is. You take the present tense verb, tujahidu. You make it jussive, put la in front of it, and you get la tujahid. That's it. A clear, direct prohibition. So elegant. So after all of this, what's the big takeaway here? What should you remember? It's this. The Arabic imperative is not about memorizing a ton of different words. It's about understanding a system. The next time you need to form a command, just ask yourself one simple question. Do I need a hamza? Once you have the answer to that, the rest of it just falls right into place.
And that kind of leaves us with one final thought to chew on. We've gone through the mechanics, right? We've mastered the form of the command, but the real magic, the really cool part, begins when you start to explore how the meaning of that command shifts and changes when you move from a basic verb to one of those richer, derived forms. I mean, that's where the true depth and the beauty of the language really starts to open up.